President Trump expected to take the stage very soon. We'll bring you live coverage of his speech in a few minutes. First, we have so much critical breaking news to cover. We start with our breaking news opening monologue. A lot of news tonight. I want to get it in. Our top story, something that Trump will likely confront tonight head-on at his rally. Yesterday, an anonymous figure claiming to be a senior official in the Trump administration authoring an op-ed in the New York Times bashing the president and his agenda and telling lies. Now, the deep state, unelected Washington bureaucrat, actually thinks he or she knows more than you. They know more about who should be president. Your vote to them means nothing. We are smelly Walmart, irredeemable deplorables to them. All while this anonymous figure hides behind the liberal New York Times. They are complicit in this. Now the Washington Post, get this, reporting that sleeper cells have awoken inside the executive branch of the United States of America. Think about that. A sleeper cell. A senior official who might have access to top secret classified information, who might have privileged insider knowledge about sources and methods. That's people's lives. Now actively working within our government against your commander-in-chief. The media won't say this, I will. This is extraordinarily dangerous to this great constitutional republic. And the disgusting hate Trump media, they are complicit in this cowardly betrayal. Moments ago, President Trump tweeted the following. Are the investigative, so-called, journalists of the New York Times, are they going to investigate themselves? Who is the anonymous letter writer? Now, of course, this coward could be one of literally hundreds of senior-level employees in the executive branch. We know that Trump's senior cabinet members and close advisors are all vehemently denying writing this op-ed tonight. We're calling whoever you are, come forward. You have purposely mischaracterized the president's conservative policies in your op-ed. In other words, you're lying about his effective handling of the economy, North Korea, his tough approach towards Russia. You obviously have your own agenda, your own political personal bias. You are an unelected, unaccountable, anonymous official. The American people did not hire you to do this. You have access, perhaps, to intelligence methods. Do you have knowledge of the president's plans to defend America? If so, are you going to try to undermine that? It's the right thing to do. If you really care about the country, as you so claim to do, as a super patriot, come forward. This country's safety is obviously not the goal of whoever this mysterious figure is. Nor does the corrupt media in this country even care. What would happen if resistant sleeper cells had emerged in Obama's White House? Would the media be all in on that? This is all political, working in the shadows, undermining a sitting, duly elected president from within. These are the actions of a deep state super patriot who thinks they know better than you, we, us, we the people. These are actions of someone who thinks Trump never deserved to be president, that we were all wrong. These are the actions of someone who cares, what, about democracy and the sanctity of your vote? No. And what does the op-ed author mean? What does he mean when he writes this? Until one way or another, it's over, meaning the Trump presidency. Is that a threat to the president of the United States, one way or another? What does that mean? Because that can be interpreted as a threat to the president. I hope the Secret Service is looking. Now, sooner or later, whoever you are, you'll be gone. And by gone, I mean caught, exposed, fired, and probably held accountable for these horrible deeds, whatever you've done. Now we turn to another top story. This is huge news tonight. Breaking only minutes ago, The Hill's John Solomon reporting that Christopher Steele's phony Russian dossier was likely the basis for the ongoing witch hunt into Trump-Russia so-called collusion after it was pushed by several high-ranking deep state officials who all shared one thing in common: a political hatred for Donald Trump. Is what Solomon writes, quote, there is now growing confidence that the FBI's sudden pivot from Papadopoulos to Steele was driven by several officials, all with serious political baggage. And we're talking about Andrew McCabe, Page, Strzok, and of course Bruce Orr and Christopher Steele, all Trump haters. And according to Solomon, we're learning that Bruce Orr was attempting to actually steer the FBI so-called Russia collusion investigation toward the phony Steele dossier much earlier than we previously thought. Now, several officials, all with serious political baggage, as he describes them. Remember, this is the dossier. This will all be traced back to Hillary. Many of the same figures protected her so she could stay in the race by exonerating her after she obviously committed felonies and crimes. And, of course, the DNC and Clinton funded this phony Russian Steele dossier before the 2016 election. They funneled that money through that law firm. That money then goes to Fusion GPS. They hire a foreign national, a spy, Christopher Steele, and, by the way, the wife of a high-ranking, fourth highest-ranking member of the DOJ, Nellie Orr. They put it all together, op research, unverified lies against Donald Trump. No one verified this information. Nobody. Even Steele himself said under oath the contents were raw intelligence. He did not even stand by his own dossier. But it gets worse. The dossiers leaked to the press. Why? To influence you, the American people, with Russian lies. And worse than that, it spread throughout the highest levels of our federal government by Nellie Orr's husband, Bruce Orr, again, the fourth highest ranking official at the DOJ. And then it was used as the very basis for FISA warrants against the Trump campaign associate, Carter Page. And by the way, I'm told they withheld exculpatory evidence. That's the very basis for what is now Mueller's witch hunt, or even briefed. This is amazing. It starts with Hillary, the DNC, they pay for it. They get the money through funneled money to an op research group. Then it hires Christopher Steele. Then, of course, it's being used to get FISA warrants, but it's also being funneled to Mueller's pit bull, as described by the New York Times, Andrew Weissman. The contents of the dossier, he's updated through Bruce Orr. 70 contacts Orr and Steele have together. Hillary to Steele to Russia, right into Rob Mueller's office. Russian lies. You can't make this up. This is insane. A web of corruption and abuse of power surrounding a foreign actor, a phony Russian dossier in an effort to stop this man from becoming president and then destroy him after he did. Now, we did tonight reach out to all the deep state actors mentioned in Solomon's breaking report. So far, no response. But tonight, we do have some positive developments to report. We have 12 Republican lawmakers now calling on President Trump to declassify the retracted parts of multiple FISA documents, specifically pages 10 through 12, 17 to 34. That could be released as early as tomorrow or next week. And lawmakers now believe that this retracted information, along with 302s and the Gang of Eight, can explain and might have exculpatory evidence on Carter Page and other important information out of the Steele dossier, how a fraud was committed on a court, and how an attempt to sabotage a sitting president. We'll have a lot more on this tonight. Also, more positive FISA developments. One former official who signed off on a FISA request against Page, we now know is subject of a grand jury investigation. That's called progress, finally. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe fired for lying, and now he may face serious legal issues. And my guess is this grand jury we now have confirmed as convened will look at everyone who committed a fraud on the FISA court, who signed off on the unverified, uncorroborated, phony Russian Clinton paid-for dossier, and the lies by omission, like not telling the court, even though they knew it, that Hillary paid for it all. Andrew McCabe's attorney responding to us tonight, brushing it off as nothing more than, the standard procedure. We all know better. This is why elections matter. If elected, 61 days, Democrats, they will obstruct the president's effort to drain the swamp. And just like they're trying in vain to obstruct the nomination of Judge Kavanaugh. And today, New Jersey Senator, likely presidential hopeful, Cory Booker, he headlined the Democrats' pathetic political grandstanding, threatening to break Senate rules, release confidential documents about Kavanaugh to the general public. Our own Shannon Breen and others reporting, however, the documents, they had previously been released. And not only that, Cory Booker was told they were released. So still, he had to put on a show based on what he already knew was released for his adoring fans because he's running for president. I don't have time to run it now. But then he went on to call his actions today a Spartacus moment, even though he did nothing courageous. He broke no rules. He faced no consequences, just a blatant play to his base so he can run for president in 2020. But in Booker's mind, he rose to the level of a Roman gladiator, risking it all for a cause, calling himself a hero for doing absolutely nothing. It's like Colin Kaepernick going 1-11. And then after that, of course, saying, oh, the NFL's unfair to me. John Solomon, Greg Jarrett, Sarah Carter with us. President's walking on stage. Let's talk first, and we'll get to the president's speech. Tell us about your report.
So in the summer, July 30th, the day before the FBI opens the investigation on the Trump campaign, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, Christopher Steele meet at a restaurant. As soon as they get out and they compare their notes on what Steele says he has on Trump, he calls Andy McCabe. He meets with Andy McCabe a few days later, and by the 15th, he's meeting with Pete Strzok. And that is why this investigation—
They're all together.
They're all
together.
the
Trump haters.
And remember, all of them have an issue with Trump or with Clinton. There's no doubt about it. So we thought that the Steele dossier had kind of walked in through normal channels. We now know that Orr Steele steered it in, and that's going to become that's something.
Oh, did you get it to your friend and the special counsel? Oh, we don't want to be exposed. Oh, I hope the firewalls hold.
I was just going to say that. Hope the firewalls hold, but they didn't hold, and they were panicking about that, Sean. I mean, look at what happened with Andrew Weissman. Now we know for a fact that Orr was in communication with Weissman, that he was basically passing information or trying to pass information to Robert Mueller's office. I think this investigation, the scope of this investigation is going to get so much wider, and now that McCabe is under a grand jury investigation, imagine what they are going to find. I mean, we have spent years just trying to peel back the layers of this onion, and now we finally discover all of these connections and all of these players. But going back to John's story, it is so vitally important, these timelines, Sarah? Because Nellie Orr, you know, she was working early on for Fusion GPS.
Let's get a quick comment. By the way, Greg, Sarah, John are with us for the hour. We're going to be dipping into the president's speech. Well, why don't we do that now as he takes to the podium? Big, obviously a long ovation for the president.
Hello, Montana. This is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's no place like a Rosendale rally. Forget Trump. Rosendale. But there is no place like a Trump rally, right? We have a good time. We have a good time. And in the election, we won this state by a lot. That was not close. But I am thrilled to be back in Big Sky country with so many of my great friends and true American patriots. Thank you. Thank you. From the Rocky Mountains to the Great Plains, the people of Montana love our country so much. They honor our values, and you always respect our great American flag. You see what's happening. This is an incredible time for our nation. We have the best economy in history. The stock market is at record highs. Unemployment is at historic lows. And more Americans are working today than ever, ever, ever before. That's a great stat, isn't it? Think of it. More Americans today. And it grows every week. Every week it gets higher, higher. But more Americans are working today than have ever worked before in our country. It's a great stat. That's a big stat. Our coal miners are back to work. And we are fighting every day for our great ranchers and loggers and farmers, and we're winning that fight, and we're winning it quickly. We're rebuilding our military, crushing the terrorists, and taking care of our veterans. America is winning again, and America is being respected again. As you all saw this week, the Senate is now considering a truly exceptional nominee for the United States Supreme Court, Judge Brett Kavanaugh. And he's doing really well. But do you believe the anger and the meanness on the other side? Sick. It's sick. The whole country has now seen his amazing intellect and his brilliant legal mind. Judge Kavanaugh deserves overwhelming bipartisan support, and I think he's going to be one of our truly great Supreme Court justices. So tonight we're joined by truly terrific Republican leaders from the great state of Montana, including a friend of mine, an incredible senator, somebody that works so hard, and I can tell you, I don't want to embarrass him, but I'm going to tell you, he loves you. Senator Steve Daines. Hello, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Great job. Steve is a worker, and he does an incredible job. You also have a great attorney general who I've gotten to know over the years, Tim Fox, doing a fantastic job. Thank you, Tim. Thanks, Tim. Your Secretary of State, Corey Stapleton. Corey. Thanks, Corey. State Superintendent of Public Instruction. And he's just, I mean, this is a fantastic person. Elsie Arnson. Elsie, thank you. Thank you, Elsie. Great job. Been fantastic. You are really, she has done some job. I've heard all about you, your reputation. Thank you very much. And your outstanding Montana GOP chairwoman, Deborah Lamb. So, Deborah, how are we doing now compared to Election Day almost 2 years ago? Can you believe it? How are we doing? Better, even? Better, good. That's what we're doing in most states. And the states that we won, we're doing better. Thank you. Thanks. Great job. Great job, Deborah. I'm also thrilled to be joined by Montana's terrific member of Congress, a true champion for Montana. And I'll tell you what, this man has fought in more ways than one for your state. He has fought for your state. Greg Gianforte. He is a fighter and a winner. He's a winner. Great. He loves your state. Thank you very much, Greg. Great job. Everybody has to get out and vote for Greg over the last. Hey, thank you very much, Greg. Great job. Everybody has to get out and vote for Greg over the last. But I'm here for a very specific reason. Please welcome the person that we have such respect for. He's now leading in the polls. But I don't want to say that. I want to say he's just a little bit like 1 or 2 points behind. Is that okay, Matt, for me to say that? But he is somebody who is going to be a phenomenal United States Senator from Montana, Matt Rosendale. Matt, come on. Matt. Come on up, Matt.
Welcome back to Montana, Mr. President.
All right, as we get a break in the president speaking, we go back to John Solomon, Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett. Greg, you've been also following John's breaking news story today, on top of Sarah's news and on top of, it seems like, the unredacted materials that everybody's been requesting of the president, FISA warrants and 302s and other issues that could be exculpatory, even to people like Papadopoulos and Page. This all may be coming out either tomorrow or within days. Talk about John's report and the unredactions, or the president literally freeing this information that Congress has been seeking forever.
Well, Congress deserves this information. They're legally entitled to it. It's under subpoena, and the Department of Justice and the FBI have been obstructing justice and obstructing Congress, and the president can put a stop to it with a wave of his pen. 4 different sets of documents, and I'm told they will not only be exculpatory of the president himself, but they will be explosive in the level of corruption that the FBI and the Department of Justice engaged in, that they used false intelligence knowingly to target and frame Donald Trump, to launch this dilating investigation of him and to spy on the Trump campaign through a FISA wiretap warrant. So the American people deserve to get to the bottom of this, and the only way is sunshine is the best disinfectant.
Let me go back to
Let
John
Americans
Solomon.
read these documents.
And John, your breaking news report, this is a profound piece. And, you know, I could pull it out here, and you go to the headline of your piece. Orr's efforts to secretly reshape the Trump probe started in early 16. Now we know that Orr and Steele are close.
Right.
Steele is funneling information, as I was pointing out to Sarah, to Andrew Weissman.
Yeah.
So Hillary Clinton's Russian paid-for lies make it all the way into Mueller's special counsel office. But more importantly, Bruce Orr is the conduit, 70 contacts plus with Steele, meetings, texts, written messages.
And who does he bring to the meeting? The meeting that they're going to talk about where it launches him towards the FBI, he brings his wife. The conflict of interest is sitting at the table.
And Lisa Page.
And Lisa Page comes to the
and
meeting.
Peter Strzok.
And
Andrew McCabe.
Yep.
And they're all Trump
And
haters.
Weissman. And Weissman.
Okay, so now the question is this. Is this the insurance policy exposed?
I think it is. And here's the theory that I've been hearing from people who really know about this. They started the investigation of Papadopoulos. They got some exculpatory information that Papadopoulos wasn't what they thought it was. They should have shut it down then. Steele walks in the door and allows them to keep it open without them getting in trouble. That's going to be what we learn, I think, when these documents get unsealed. And I think everything Greg and Sarah have reported the last 2 years, they're all going to be corroborated by those documents.
I know that and I too, by the way.
Of course.
We've been out on a little bit of a limb with all of you, so it's a team of us here.
It is a team. Yeah.
But let me go to Sarah. The other big news that the news doesn't focus on at all, because they're not news, they're fake news. The grand jury. We now know a grand jury is convened, and that witnesses are appearing before the grand jury. This is about McCabe, but I believe it's also going to be about Sally Yates, Jim Comey, and Rod Rosenstein, because they all signed the phony FISA warrant, the Russian lies, with grand omissions that they never verified, Sarah.
This is Rosenstein's FISA, and I say this over and over again because he signed the 4th FISA warrant. The 4th part of that warrant was the renewal, the last renewal on Carter Page. So, Sean, he had all the information of the previous FISAs at his beck and call, and he can't make up any excuses. He put his signature on that. He can't say, well, I let someone else read it. No, it was your job. This is about a presidential campaign. This is an investigation into the president of the United States, Rod Rosenstein. It is your job to ensure that that FISA was solid, that that FISA abided by the law. And now what we know
But wait a minute.
is
If
that
the grand jury is convened and witnesses are being heard, and he signed the last FISA when we had all the information for sure, that it was the bulk of information, the phony Steele Clinton paid for dossier. If I'm Rod Rosenstein, I'm scared to death tonight.
Oh, I would be scared to death, too. And what we have to look at is, you know, with John's story, I think this is so important, and we got to go to the big picture, Sean, because if you step back, the FBI is investigating Trump because apparently they believed that there was some kind of collusion with the Russians. But the FBI had no problem putting Russian lies into a FISA warrant to spy on an American citizen. So back to the collusion. The collusion does not appear to be anywhere near President Trump. It appears to be directly with the higher officials at the FBI.
Real quick, John, what does that mean for Rod, James, Andrew, and Sally?
Well, here's a great question. Bruce Orr worked directly under Rod Rosenstein when he signed that fourth one. Bruce Orr says, I knew it was hearsay. How could Rod Rosenstein...
Said inadmissible.
Yeah, inadmissible and hearsay. Uncorroborated. Rod Rosenstein, should he have the ability to sign FISAs going forward? That's a great question we should ask the Justice Department.
Is it possible he doesn't? We don't know.
We have to ask that question. That's a question I've had pending for a couple of days at the Justice Department.
All right, back to President Trump, and we'll continue with John, Sarah, and Greg straight ahead.
And by the way, you obstruct these justices, you're going to lose your Second Amendment. You're going to lose your right to those guns. You're going to lose your Second Amendment. So be careful. Be careful. Be careful. And don't forget, Tester's going to vote with the Waters and the Pelosi. Can you imagine? Maxine Waters is your new leader in the party. Can you believe it? Maxine Waters. She is something. But he's going to vote for Schumer. They're going to do whatever they say. They stick it. I will say this. I will say this. One thing. Their policies are horrible. They're for open borders, meaning let all the crime come in. They're against so many things that you want. You know, I've been saying, and I've been saying it strongly, they're going to take away, they're going to hurt your Social Security so badly, and they're killing you on Medicare. Just remember that. I'm going to protect your Social Security. We're going to take care of your Social Security. Matt Rosendale is going to make sure we're not touching your Social Security, and your Medicare is only going one way. That's stronger. They're going to end up taking it away from you, and you won't even know what happened. And on top of that, you're going to pay more tax. It's crazy. John Tester will never drain the swamp because he happens to live in the swamp and he loves the swamp. John Tester, I feel a little guilty because, you know, he did run the most beautiful commercial. I heard yesterday it started, and he's like my best friend, President Trump this, President Trump that. It's amazing when you win a state by a lot of points, how even Democrats can like you. Isn't that crazy? But the problem is he's never going to vote for me. He's not going to vote. But he's taken more cash from lobbyists than almost anyone in the entire Senate. He's controlled by his donors. One of the saddest things that I've seen is when John Tester and what he did to a great, great man, Admiral Ronnie Jackson. Admiral Jackson was subjected to horrible lies and smears. Now, I'm, you know, a victim of that too, but I'm sort of getting used to it. At least it's my job. You know, I was going to say, I'm a politician. I never thought I was going to say I'm a politician. Can you believe I guess I'm a politician? You know? I guess I'm a politician. Think of it. I didn't want to say that. One of the few times I've said it, yeah, I'm a politician. But, you know, I've only run once, and that was for president, and I won. How did that happen, right? Isn't that nice? I won once, and I won. A lot of people have spent their lives trying to be president. We know them all. Some we respect, and some we don't respect too much. But Ronnie Jackson, he's a doctor. He's an admiral. He's actually the doctor that gave me my physical, and he said that I'm in great shape. And the Democrats and liberals and deep state, they were very upset to hear that. So they got tougher and tougher, and they lied more, and they write more books now. I have books that stacked up this high. Actually, the ones that are really good are number 1, 2, and 3 on the bestsellers list, right? The really good ones. By justice, you know, I call her Justice, but she's Judge, but she's Justice to me. Janine, we love her. Judge Janine, by Greg Jarrett. How about Bongino? He's got a very successful book. How about Bongino? So many. And they're all doing great. And that's what makes me happy. But the media doesn't talk about those books. They only talk about the bad ones, of which there are plenty. They're lies, but they're plenty. But Admiral Jackson, his reputation was attacked, and all of those horrible things that were said about him turned out to be lies, and they turned out to be false. Remember? People don't want to say that. In the last election, Washington Democrats put John Tester in charge of electing extreme liberals. I mean, I'm talking about serious liberals, many of whom you're watching attacking Judge Kavanaugh and looking like fools, frankly. Looking like fools. And one of them will most likely be a candidate to run against your favorite of all time president, me. But when I see the anger in their eyes, when I see the anger of what they say to an intellect far greater than theirs, not even a contest, but I see the anger and the hatred. What are they doing? What are they doing? They're losing by doing it. They're losing by doing it. I just want to finish off, though. What Tester did to Admiral Jackson should never, ever be allowed. Ronnie Jackson is a great man. Ronnie Jackson has led a great and beautiful life. And to have lies told about him, I would never repeat what they are. See, in my case, they repeat them. I say, don't repeat them. They're terrible. They say, no, we're going to deny them. Do we love Sean Hannity, by the way? I love him. But here's the only thing. He puts up all these losers that say horrible things. I've got to talk to him. One after another. Donald Trump. He's lost it up here. You know, it's pretty tough. I stand up here giving speeches for an hour and a half, many times without notes. And then they say, he's lost it. And yet we have 25,000 people showing up to speeches. And by the way, look at all the fake news back there. Donald Trump. They go, Donald Trump. You know, it's really funny. Donald Trump's lost it. So I beat 17 great Republicans. I mean, senators. I beat governors. A couple of people, great people like Ben Carson. I beat a lot of great people. Ben Carson was tough. But I beat 17 great people. And I respectfully say I beat the Bush dynasty. Okay. That's over. Pretty recently. Okay. Now I have the privilege of going against crooked Hillary Clinton. So I beat crooked Hillary. I beat crooked Hillary, and the Electoral College is hard. It's, frankly, if we didn't know better, and maybe we're starting to find things out that we didn't know, it's hard and harder to win than popular vote. Popular vote, you go to 3-4 states, and boom, 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 you win the. It's like the 100-yard dash versus running the mile. You practice differently. She forgot that. She forgot to go to a couple of very important states. Gee, I don't think I'm going to go to Michigan too much. I don't think I'm going to go, she said, to Wisconsin. I do hear her husband said, you know, you better go to Michigan. You better start going to Wisconsin. Well, fortunately, she didn't listen to that. But think of it. So I beat the Republicans, governors, senators. I beat the Bush dynasty, respectfully. I beat Hillary, who stole it from Bernie. Bernie should have won, but that's okay. They stole it. Superdelegates. How do you like superdelegates? But she's got superdelegates that were handed to her. Bernie should be angry. Why isn't he angry? Crazy Bernie. He is so crazy, but you know what? I saw him the other day on television, and he's ranting and raving. He's sitting behind a microphone. I'm going to do this. I'm going to that. Bomb, bomb, bomb. The hair's flying. He's going crazy. He's going crazy. And I said to my wife, honey, look at that guy. You got to hand it to him. No, you got to hand it to him. He doesn't quit. He doesn't give up. I just don't understand why he allowed that to happen. And he goes back into being an independent. But now he's coming back in. And I guess he's going to run. He's going to run. But think of it. So you beat two dynasties. You beat all these politicians. Charles Krauthammer, when I announced that I was going to run, he said, why would he run? This is the finest. Well, he didn't know me, so I'm not insulted. He said, this is the finest field of Republicans ever assembled. I actually did. I looked at my wife. I said, you know, that's his business. He just said, these are the finest ever assembled. Why am I doing this? And then I said, that's okay. I'll do it anyway. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. So I beat all these senators, all these governors, all these brilliant political minds. Then I beat the other side. And then I listened. Is he competent? I think I'm pretty competent, right? Don't you think so? Is he competent? And their ratings are down the tubes. You know why? Because people get it. They really get it. But it is funny to hear that you have all these victories. And you know what? More important than those victories, we're winning in the United States now. We're winning on trade. We're winning with our military. We're knocking the hell out of the terrorists. We're winning now in the United States. You look at what's going on. We have new deals being made. We have a deal we just made with Mexico. That's a fair deal. It's not that horrendous deal that was made years ago that should have been changed years ago. We're negotiating with Canada. We'll see what happens. We're in a little bit of a skirmish, but doing really well with China. You see what's going on? Really well. I have great respect for President Xi of China, but honestly, we have to be treated fairly. Last year, we had a trade deficit of anywhere from $375 billion with the B dollars to, I say, $504 billion. Either one is not acceptable. So we're doing that, and it's working out very well. I just came on stage, and I was told that Kim Jong-un said some terrific things about me. He said, I have faith in President Trump. Think of this. You don't hear that from them. And just moments ago, they put on that he said very strongly that we want to denuclearize North Korea during President Trump's tenure. That's a nice, he just said it, But in the meantime, even if he didn't, we got our hostages back. There's been no more missile testing. There's been no more rockets flying over Japan. There's been no more nuclear testing. And we have a good feeling. He likes me, I like him. Who knows what's going to happen? But I can tell you what, the day before I took office, and even, I must say, because as you know, the rhetoric was fairly tough. It's interesting. With him, I had very tough rhetoric. And the fake news was saying, it's too tough. He's going to get us into the war. It's terrible. He's being too tough. It's horrible. What does he know about this? He knows nothing. I watched all these guys who have been losing for 30 years explaining why my method of negotiation wasn't working. Right? And I'll tell you what, I respect him, he respects me, and I think something's going to happen. Take your time. I say, we take your time. Sanctions are on. But think of it. We got back our dollars. But it's funny, you know, because other than NATO, because I got them to pay billions and billions of dollars more, because we're paying for NATO. We're paying this massive percentage of cost. We're protecting Europe. But I got them to pay billions of dollars more, and the fake news said he wasn't respectful to the leaders of other countries. And they're right in a way, because I said, listen, folks, I'm sorry, you're going to have to pay up. You got to pay up. You're delinquent. You know, in real estate, we say you're delinquent. And somebody asked me, it's really amazing they never covered this, because if they do, they would have said this is terrible. One of the leaders in front of the others, 28 nations, one of the leaders, who I get along with all fell. They respect us now because they couldn't believe. For years, NATO spending was going like this. And by the way, this is spending to protect them against Russia. You know, they keep talking about Russia. We're protecting, I got them to pay billions of dollars more, okay? But they said, sir, could we ask you one question? It's always nice when a president or a prime minister calls you sir. That means he's a certain respect. He said, if you don't walk away from these meetings with us paying what we're supposed to be paying or much more, will you leave us? I said, yes, I will. And they all said, we'll pay. We'll pay. Now, the mainstream media doesn't want me to say that. They want me to say, no, no, sir, we'll never leave you. But then there's no reason for them to pay, right? Why would they pay? Supposing they asked me the same question. Sir, and we're talking about billions. And last year, Secretary Stoltenberg, Secretary General, head of NATO, he goes around, he's like my biggest fan. And I like him too. But he goes around saying, last year, that was when I just did a minor, because, you know, I was only in office for about 14 seconds. So I couldn't, you know, I didn't want to use too much bravado. You know how much I paid extra? $44 billion. That was last year. This year, it's much higher, because now I feel comfortable. I asked them in a more firm manner. And they're paying, and they should pay. But they were saying that I didn't treat them well. If I would have done what they said, or if I would have done what these consultants and these people that I watch on television who used to do this stuff, they all failed. They failed miserably. So we have our own way. It's a great way. But it's really interesting, because when I was dealing with North Korea and they were saying, he's too tough, he's too tough. One of my best meetings ever was with Vladimir Putin. And they said, he was too nice. He was too nice. They wanted me to have a boxing match on the stage. We had a great meeting. We talked about Ukraine. We talked about Syria. We talked about the protection of Israel. We talked about so many great things. But they came back and they said, it was terrible. I said, what was terrible? We had a great meeting. And you know, when I came off stage, they were all saying, that was a great meeting. Thank you. That was a great news. Then I got onto the plane and they said, sir, I don't think they liked it. I said, they liked it. They're just fake. They're fake news. We had a great meeting. It was a great meeting. And you know the funny thing? If I was tough, if I would have said, you're never going to do this again. There'll be no more of this and no more of that. And stood them right in the face and then started boxing. You know what would have happened? They would have said, he's too tough. That was a disgrace to our nation. The truth is, with these people, you can't win, but we're winning. I'm president. You're president. We're winning. So everybody knows John Tester's game. He says one thing in Montana, but does the exact opposite in Washington. That's what happens. He'll come home and tell you about your Second Amendment, then he'll vote for something where you knock the hell out of it. John Tester talks like he's from Montana, but he votes like he's Nancy Pelosi. That's what he votes. He's a Nancy Pelosi. No, look at his voting. It's the same voting as Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and the legendary Maxine. John Tester voted no on tax cuts. and he voted for the Obamacare disaster, which we almost repealed and replaced, but we'll get it done. And remember this, we got rid of the most unpopular element of Obamacare, right? The individual mandate. We got rid of the individual mandate. That was the most unpopular single. That is where you have the right to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay a fortune for bad health care. Right? It's incredible. But we got rid of it. We'll get rid of all of it. And you know, one thing I have to say also, Obamacare was going up 115%, 125%, 80%, 60%, 53%, all different places. It was going up massively. You know, we want to repeal and replace it, and if we get enough Republicans, we will, and we'll have a much better health care. We've already come up with some of them, association care, etc. But to do it, and we will do it, we had it done. We had it done. But remember, Tester voted no. He voted no on Kate's Law. Kate's Law. What could be better than Kate's Law? He voted no on enhanced vetting for refugees. Let's not vet them. Let's just let them pour right into Montana, and you see what's going on. And John Tester voted in favor of deadly sanctuary cities. Tell me that. So that's not a person from Montana. I have a lot of friends in Montana. I don't get it. How did he get elected? How did he get elected? John Tester voted for very liberal Obama judges 99% of the time. And yet, he would make it impossible for an incredible, distinguished admiral, doctor, not to get in. Figure that one. And yet, super liberal judges, many of whom are mocked and scorned. And John Tester voted against our incredible Supreme Court Justice, Neil Gorsuch. How do you do that? How do you do that? First in his class at Harvard, first in his class at Oxford, and he decides, I think I'll vote no. And by the way, Justice Gorsuch is great, and he's doing a fantastic job, and Justice Kavanaugh will do the same job. It's embarrassing to watch those people make fools of themselves as they scream and shout at this great gentleman. This election, you aren't just voting for a candidate. You're voting for which party controls Congress. It's a very important thing. Very important thing. I don't even bring it up because I view it as something that, you know, but they like to use the impeach word. Impeach Trump. Maxine Waters, we will impeach him. But he didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't matter. We will impeach him. We will impeach. But I say, how do you impeach somebody that's doing a great job, that hasn't done anything wrong? Our economy is good. How do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? We will impeach him. But he's doing a great job. Doesn't matter. Remember that line. He's doing a great job. That doesn't matter. We'll impeach him. It is a hell of a place in Washington. You know, I was thinking, if that happened, every time a Republican or a Democrat opposite got elected president. So let's say a Democrat gets elected someday. Hopefully it's a long time. But let's say a Democrat gets elected. And let's say we have a Republican House. We will impeach that Democrat, right? And then a Republican. We won by a lot. We won by a hell of a margin. That's a lot. That electoral college, we won by a lot. Okay, So we're in there. We've got the best employment numbers in our history. We've got the best economy in our history. You look at the numbers in every category, it's great. We're doing a great job. We're putting on phenomenal judges. And you take that and you do. Then what you're going to have is you'll have a country that's going to turn into a third world country. Because if the opposite party becomes president, every time before it even starts, before you've even found out whether or not he or she is going to do a great job, they'll say, we want to impeach him, and you'll impeach him. It's so ridiculous. But we'll worry about that if it ever happens. But if it does happen, it's your fault because you didn't go out to vote. Okay? You didn't go out to vote. You didn't go out to vote. That's the only way it can happen. I'll be the only